So how does one put a composition into a Pro Tools session? If you've made something in a notation program or any program that has MIDI, basically you can go to that program. If you like the sounds to that, I highly recommend using this. It's called Note Performer. And Note Performer is a VST plugin that works specifically with Sibelius to make it play back all your notation really well using artificial intelligence. Okay, so I have this, and now I just need to export it in a format that Pro Tools can handle. So I go to File and Export. And for any program in general, you're going to want to use MIDI as your export format. Some programs like Logic actually support music XML too, which is better because it includes things like text, lyrics, all that type of stuff. But we only have the option of MIDI at the moment. So we're going to do that. It says sounds. This MIDI file will be played back using current playback devices, general MIDI. General MIDI is usually what we want here, unless you know about the sounds that you want to use. So export it as that. Most of this other stuff we don't really care about a whole lot at the moment. We just go to export. Great, so I hit export. It's going to ask me where I want to put it. Put it on my desktop. I already have one there, so I'm replacing it. And once I've exported this composition as a MIDI file, I'm going to go into Pro Tools and go to File and Import MIDI. Find it on my desktop, .mid file here, and hit Open. It'll ask me where I want to put it. You just want to put it in New Instrument Tracks, unless you're going to use the JV1010 and external audio stuff and external sound modules. If you're going to use external sound modules and keyboards and stuff that are not inside of the computer, select MIDI track. For us, though, we're probably going to use internal software instruments, and so I select instrument track. The rest of this is just fine. Location's going to be starting at the session start. Cool. So hit OK, and it'll create all these MIDI tracks in just a second here. And here's all the tracks I had from my same piece. I'm going to go ahead and make these smaller size, make everything mini. If you hold down the Option button while clicking on it, it'll make all of them follow the same size. So I'll say track height, mini, and then all of them are that size. Probably the next one bigger than that will be good. Track height, small. Cool. So here's all my tracks for that symphonic score. Now that I have them here, I can just assign sounds to them. I can just pick something that represents them. It's probably strings again, so I'm going to go into the Inserts, Multi-Channel Plugin, Instrument, and I'm going to do Contact. So I'm going to do this string ensemble here and do something that has everything in there. Now it's still not playing back here because I have to actually assign the sound to this contact instrument. I need to go to All, then I need to go to where it says MIDI down here and select a channel on contact. Now I'm going to go ahead and solo this. If I push play, plays back the MIDI using whatever contact instrument. See if that's working down here too. So fine, I can go ahead and assign sounds to each of these and then mix them just how I like. How does one see Sibelius notation from the original work made in the Pro Tools session? Well, the same type of thing happens like this. If I want to go from Pro Tools, I can actually just take the same stuff I have and say File and Export MIDI. File format, multi-track. Say OK. I'll say Pro Tools MIDI export for Sibelius. And hit it in desktop. It's going to make another MIDI file. I'm going to go to File and Import. Maybe File Open. I don't know. And I'm going to do Pro Tools MIDI export for Sibelius and hit open. It says, what do you want to do with this? Use sounds from Note Performer? I do, because that's the one that's best. If you don't have Note Performer, which you wouldn't have at school, you can just select like general MIDI. Let's just try that. Okay. And I say whatever, okay. Now sometimes this is going to create funky looking stuff. So there's spacing issues and stuff, but it still imports everything in there. It's going to try to use what are called general MIDI sounds. So, you're going to have to make some adjustments to it. But by and large, it imports everything from Pro Tools. Next thing, how to pitch shirt a vocal audio track. I don't know how to pitch shirt it, but if you want to pitch shift it, add things like artificial vibrato, you can do that in Pro Tools in a couple ways with the built-in stuff. I'm going to delete these tracks first of all, so they're all selected here at the moment. I'm going to right-click and hit delete. I don't need these. Cool. I've hidden a track over here. I'm going to re-show this. This is a vocal track here. Pro Tools comes with a variety of plugins for that automatically. If you go to Inserts and Plugin, what we're going to want to choose is Pitch Shift. And some of these we don't have at school, but we have this one, Air Frequency Shifter. We'll load that one on. We're going to try out how each of these works. Pitch Shift, M Auto Pitch. These are the free Melda plugins that we have installed at school that you can also freely download and use at home. Pitch Shift, I'm going to go down to, some variant of it. Mono is just mono, but mono stereo takes your mono signal and brings it into a stereo signal. We're going to also look at this one, Pitch to Mono. So these are 3 different type of plugins we're going to use. In Pro Tools, if you hold down the Apple button or Command button and click, it'll bypass the plugin. We're doing this to bypass these last 2 plugins so we can hear only the way that this frequency shift messes with it. Okay, so now I have this air frequency shifter. This is actually something that shifts back and forth. It gives you an idea of how fast you want it to shift. Usually vibrato is going to be somewhere like 3 to 7 hertz or cycles per second. So we can try this out and see what does it sound like if I make this little section play with it on there.
In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep.
Way too fast.
In the middle of the night, in the middle of the night.
So that's a bit more subtle there. So frequency shifter can be used for that vibrato effect. You could also potentially click on here, automate, and then you can change how it does this vibrato over time. So you can put it on some areas and not others in an automation name down below here. When I select it again, loop play. And then I'm going to mess with this here. It says pitch shift. I can change it by tones on the piano or by little bits of tones, lots of different ways. So let's just give that a try here.
In the middle of the night, in the middle of the night.
Fine shift, chord shift. Chord shift just means one tone at a time and play them together.
I go walking in my sleep through the valley of truth, through the river so deep.
Just say I wanted to fix my general singing because it wasn't perfectly on. This thing here from the Melda plugins again, M Auto Pitch, is the equivalent of Auto Tune. It'll try to real-time correct things. So if I know what key I'm in, I can press play.
I go walking in my sleep.
And it's going to try to move it back and
through the
forth
valley of truth
to correct the pitch of it. So if I'm not on, then I can use that.
In the middle of the night.
There it is. So I'm in E flat major. So then if I want to correct with the equivalent of, what's it called, auto tune, I can go into this Melda Productions auto pitch thing. I can pick the equivalent of E flat. It doesn't have it, so I'll pick D sharp is my scale. Now I can say, how fast do you want me to correct things? Speed is how fast it gets there. If you do the speed really quickly, and the depth really quickly, it's going to sound like T-pain effect. In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep. So that's too fast. I'm going to bring it down to about 50% on each. In the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep. Much better. Expand our gate. Come on. Whenever it gets to a sound level that's lower than this, like this level, it should automatically reduce the gain reduction. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit here, and what you'll see is every time the voice stops going in and doesn't have a loud enough signal, it's going to drop the background noise down automatically. So select this. I'm going to loop it, and watch what happens when the sound of the audio file doesn't get loud enough. It's going to assume, oh, it's not having someone talk directly into it, so it must be background. If it's background, it'll automatically turn down the volume or do gain reduction for us. Okay, so let's hit play, listen. Everything is going to be coming through at the very bottom, and then as I move it through, it's going to start cutting away the background, and eventually it'll cut away in the foreground too. So that all comes through, and I'm going to move it through this louder part. The softest part of the voice is about like that. So I'm going to go. So you can hear it kind of chopping something up here. That's too much. So I'm going to move it down a little bit more. So it comes through now, but I don't hear this background part. This is what happens if I select this now and hit play. No sound, because it's right here. The loudness of the sound isn't reaching the threshold. So it just cuts everything off, gain reduces it all in the background. If I play the whole file now, in the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep. Through the valley of dead silent in between, like there. Through the river so deep, I go searching for something. And that's how you cut out background noise using a dynamic gate.